Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tony Peterson. I'm Managing Fellow of the Overby Center for Southern Journalism and Politics here at the University of Mississippi. And on behalf of our chairman, Charles Overby, and our board, welcome. We are grateful for your attendance. And we are pleased this afternoon to present this program on Bob Dylan and his impact on civil rights. Two quick housekeeping items, if I might. One, after this program is over, right up those stairs and in the main Overby Center hallway, we'll have a reception. And please join us. Everyone is invited. Everyone is welcome. And two, during the reception, the campus bookstore will be there and sell copies of Jerry Mitchell's book, and Jerry will sign copies on request. Thank you, Jerry. Sure. And without further delay, I'm pleased to introduce the moderator for this program, Dr. R.J. Morgan, one of the foremost scholars on Bob Dylan and his work, and a member of the faculty of the School of Journalism and New Media here at the University of Mississippi. Professor Morgan, floor is yours.
And thank all of you for giving up your part of your Wednesday evening to join us. As Tony said, I'm Dr. R.J. Morgan. I teach here in the School of Journalism and New Media, and I have the extended pleasure of teaching the Bob Dylan and the South class here at the University of Mississippi. I got into Dylan as sort of a book project, and what really hooked me was this trip that he made to Greenwood, Mississippi back in 1963 to speak at this voter registration rally, and he wrote this song about slain Mississippi civil rights leader Medgar Evers. The class covers a lot of other things, and it has evolved into not just a class, which I see several of my students here, so we've got lots of Dylan scholars in the audience. It's not just me. But not just the class, but it's evolved into other scholars in our department, in our school, and on campus, studying Dylan and putting forth their perspectives. And so I've really tried to sort of grow this into something that our campus community can be proud of and own Bob Dylan studies and scholarship in a much larger way. Partially because, you know, there's a song Oxford Town is written about our town. But this particular program tonight won't deal with much of that. I want to really focus on what initially got me into this Dylan track, and that is Medgar Evers and the Delta Folk Jubilee of 1963. And so that's what we're going to talk about this evening. I have two panelists that I'd like to introduce to you who are far more knowledgeable about all of these things than I am. And so to my immediate left is Reena Evers-Everette. Reena is the daughter of Medgar and Merle Evers. She has a long history of nonprofit work and public speaking, and she's currently the executive director of the Medgar and Merle Evers Institute in Jackson, Mississippi. To her left, we have Jerry Mitchell with us. Jerry is the lead investigative reporter for Mississippi Today in Jackson. He's a two-time Pulitzer finalist whose reporting has helped solve multiple civil rights cold cases, including the murder of Medgar Evers and the KKK's 1964 killing of 3 civil rights workers in Neshoba County. He details his reporting journey on these cases and others in his memoir, Race Against Time, which he'll be signing in the lobby afterwards. Let's give these two a round of applause. And so with that, we'll get right to it. And so my first question is to Reena. Reena, will you just tell this crowd of people about the man that you call Daddy?
Special, loving, extremely funny, and he was just warm and compassionate inside our home with our family, outside the home with the neighbors and the community. And that's what drove him, was his compassion for humanity. And so I'm very happy that I'm part of his DNA, part of my mother's DNA, because she's a phenomenal person
Oh, yeah.
on her own.
Oh, yeah.
And let me just say this, I just flew in actually from California, being with her for a moment, and then up by way of Memphis, coming down here. But I told her that Jerry and I were going to be together again talking, and she goes, oh my goodness. And she did it like that. Because when we get together, we just laugh and we joke and we talk about really what's real, but Jerry is a part of our family. He has, and I know this is not about you, but he has just really been integral in making sure that our family gets the truth and making sure that all of society gets the truth. And being, as my mother says, the pesky little redhead that keeps calling all the time. And then my mother says, I hear you, Jerry. Stop typing everything I say.
That's true. That's true.
But he is my brother from another mother.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my dad has been around his spirit for a very long time. Because I feel, and this is the first time I'm saying this, I feel that you would not have found all the things you found without him guiding.
No, I concur. Absolutely.
What else about my dad? I mean, there's a lot of stories about my dad, okay?
Tell them about him racing, running around with you and the kids in the neighborhood. I think that's such a great picture.
Jerry loves the neighborhood stories. I love the neighborhood stories. I love the family stories. My dad was like the Pied Piper of Gine Street. Whenever his car drove up, and it was daylight, or even if it was light evening, and we were still out playing, hide and seek, catching fireflies, all of that, they saw my father's car and start yelling, Mr. Evers, come and play. Come on and play. Let's play football. Let's run. So my father would. He was a Pied Piper. He went and put his stuff down and came and gave us a head start because we lived on a slight hill. Gave us a head start thinking that we're going to beat him. Going up the hill, we're on bikes. He's running, and he lets us get the lead until we almost crest the hill, and he's gone. And he just smokes us like there's no tomorrow. And we're like, man, did you see that? And he would be just so helpful in showing us the best way to ride a bike, to do any sport, to be sportsmanlike, and to not be afraid. And so the thing that I love most about my father, and there's so many, is several things. One, he always, no matter how much he was gone, when he came, and he came in that driveway, and he crossed over the threshold, he was a family man. I have never, ever felt like I did not have my father. He was not there a lot, but when he was there, the quality was unbelievable. So to say I love my dad, yeah, I'm a daddy's girl. I love him like there's no tomorrow. See, I love my mama too. And the thing about my father, there's one guiding, this is the most important guiding factor for me in my life. And that was the year 1963. And our house was attempted firebomb. And I say attempted because my mom put it out before it could actually blow up everything. And my father was up in this area. I don't know where, but he was up in this area, up in the Delta area. And so you know Delta and Jackson, you know the distance. How many people had cell phones at that time in 1963? How did you connect with each other in 1963?
Payphones.
Phone line. Phone tree. So it was late in the evening, and my father found out by the phone tree, right? And he got in. I just know as a little girl that it was late or early in the morning. Because I know that I went to sleep with neighbors around. Police came for a quick moment and left. But my dad was standing over my bed and looking down at me. And I feel it like it was just yesterday, which is a wonderful feeling to still have. And he was looking up, and so I felt him. And so I looked up and I said, "Daddy, Daddy." And we hugged. And I saw the look on his face. It's like, this is my precious one. And it wasn't just me. He did that to my two brothers, too. I'm special, though. I'm the only girl. But when I saw him and we hugged and the fear of what happened the night before came back, I said to him, "Daddy, Daddy, do all white people hate us?" And he took a very thoughtful moment. And he looked at me and he called me by my nickname, his nickname for me, which is Sunshine. And he said, "Sunshine, there's good and bad in every race. Always look for the good." That has been my guiding post for life. Because it's not what color you are, it's what's inside your heart. And so you look for the good that's inside your heart. And so I love that of him. I love that he knew his journey in life. He accepted the charge that was given to him from above. And he tried to prepare us for that, which you don't get prepared for that. You remember stuff, but you don't get prepared for that. And he just was always present for everybody. And so when I think about Daddy, I think about this huge giant that is just looking down at me, looking at my brothers, looking at the community, looking at the world, and saying, remember, there's good and bad in every race. Look for the good. And I say thank you. So that's how I am about him, besides loving him like crazy. And he made me hate eggs.
Do you remember the first time that you knew that your father had a dangerous job?
I was 8.5 when he was assassinated.
Didn't y'all do the game?
Yeah, but see, that's the question. That's not the answer, though.
Oh, okay. Okay,
We're talking,
question-
Jerry.
that's fine.
You
Well, I
can't
was just
stop
trying to
an
remind, I'm
investigative
just trying to
reporter.
remind her,
We'll get to you in just a minute.
no rush.
But, you know, when you're little, you just kind of follow things, right? And so, to Jerry's point, my father did a game with us. And the game was, what's the safest place in the house? And so it was a game because he did not. Oh, can you hear me still?
You still got it.
Right.
And so we played that game understanding how important it was because he was a fantastic teacher. Because he told you why, but he told you in the manner that you could understand it, and also in the manner that you know you needed to do it. So my father was a disciplinarian, but my mama ruled the house that way, okay? And so you never wanted to do anything against him. You always gleaned from his wisdom, which you did not know because he did it in such a wonderful way of instilling it within you.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that did not really hit us until the night of the assassination. We were trained in military style,
Got it.
but it was not.
Regimented, yeah.
And, but prior to that, of course, we were always getting threats. So not just a Molotov cocktail, but more, what hit us deeply were the phone calls that came in. And so phone calls came in saying exactly what they were going to do, not necessarily when they were going to do it until it got close. And I remember picking up the phone during that year and them telling me how they were going to kill my family, but especially my dad. And my mom came in. I don't know if you've ever been to our house. It's not a big house. It's almost the size of this room. And I was kind of like in shock. And she took the phone because she knew. And then he started, whoever it was, started telling my mom, and she told me that I could absolutely not answer the phone anymore. I knew that it was a terrible time. I knew that my father had gone all over the state, but that he had gone to the fairgrounds. And I saw it on TV because the only time we could watch TV was the news or Saturday morning cartoons or Sunday when Tarzan came out, which is a special story because my father loved Tarzan too. My mother loved the Roadrunner, but my father would, he would let the kids know that it was Tarzan time. Do you guys want to know how? Oh! And so it went through the whole neighborhood, and if we were outside, we knew it was time to come in so we could watch Tarzan, right? So that's a special time, but yes, I knew it was more of the year I was 8 that was really more prevalent in my mind.
Gotcha. I want to bring Jerry in, and Jerry, you talk about this in your book, but tell us how how you got to be involved with the Evers family, you know, that now you're like a brother.
Yeah.
How did you get on this journey? And then tell this audience, educate them a little bit about Medgar's work before he died.
Yeah, well, I'll tell the quick version of it in terms of how I got involved in these cases. I don't know if you're like me, but if someone tells me I can't have something, I want it like a million times worse. And so there was something called the Mississippi Sovereignty Commission, which I found out about, and they were kind of this state segregationist spy agency that was operating in Mississippi from the 50s into the 70s, when the Mississippi legislature voted to seal like all those records
Right.
for 50 years. So we're talking like, 183,000 pages of records. Amazing number of pages. And so when I found that out, knowing our state legislature, my first thought was, yeah, well, there's got to be something in there. They wouldn't be sealing for 50 years. So I began to develop sources that had access to those files, and they began to slowly leak me those files. And what they showed was at the same time, the state of Mississippi was prosecuting her dad's killer, Byron D. LeBeckwith. This other arm of the state, the Sovereignty Commission, which was headed by the governor, by the way, was secretly assisting the defense trying to get Byron D. LeBeckwith, the killer, acquitted. And so that was one of the early pieces. I mean, before that, I saw the movie Mississippi Burning, and that's a whole nother story. But anyway, but yeah, that's kind of how I got on that, and there's a lot of.
So Medgar was based in Jackson,
Right.
But he was working all over the state,
Right.
Trying to advance change. And so
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit about his work and specifically the Greenwood food blockade?
Yeah. So to back up slightly in time, he and a group he fought in World War II. In fact, he fought in Normandy. He was among there was more than just the initial wave. There was like waves that continued. So fought the Nazis, essentially, in World War II, and came home to have to fight racism all over again in the form of Jim Crow. And he and some of his fellow veterans, including his brother, went to try to vote. So here they had fought for their country.
Right.
And now they're going to vote one of these rights that they had fought for, right? And basically were turned away by white men with guns. And so from that moment forward, Medgar Evers was totally all in on, getting involved in the movement. From that moment forward, he was involved. And so he attended Alcorn, and where he met his lovely wife, and who wanted to be a concert pianist, actually. And the whole other side story on that. But anyway, so they married, and he wound up working for Dr. T.R.M. Howard, who was kind of the leading civil rights leader in Mississippi at the time. Became his mentor, and delivered Reena, too. Was the doctor that delivered Reena. Lived in Mound Bayou, and then he applied right here at Ole Miss to try to attend law school here. And it was turned away. This is before Brown versus Board of Education, by the way, January of '54. And so they were he was talking to the NAACP, are they going to take this on as one of their cases? There's a whole series of higher ed cases kind of that were going on before we think of Brown versus Board of Education, and a number which had been successful. And so, but the NAACP was so impressed with Medgar that they hired him. And so he became the first field secretary for the Mississippi NAACP, and literally put 40,000 miles a year on his Oldsmobile. I love this image, and I have it in my book, of just the Oldsmobile he had. The speedometer would turn different colors depending on how fast you were going. So I love this image of him speeding across the Delta, which he did.
Yeah.
You know, with the speedometer glowing red. You know.
Can I just interject?
Yeah, please go ahead.
He didn't just speed it, he had it souped up to do
Oh
that.
yeah, that I don't doubt.
He had it souped up to do that. And
Oh,
just
I'm
one
sure.
other point, when you asked when did he really start, he really started at the age of 14.
Yeah, it's true. Willie
Because
Tingle.
at
Yeah.
14, Willie Tingle was a family friend and was brutally killed and lynched.
Lynch, yeah.
And to make sure that there was a statement known to especially the Black community, he was left hanging. And then when they took him down, they left his clothes hanging
Right.
to make sure that there was a warning that this could happen, because they had dragged him through the streets
Right.
of Decatur. And so that infuriated my father
Yeah.
for several reasons. One, because it happened, and the other is after it happened, there was a total silent lockdown on it. No one talked about it. No one did anything about it. And that infuriated him. And so that was before he
No, you're right. You're right.
to-
That was
to war and
yeah.
registered for the Army in error because he did it before his age was appropriate
Yeah.
to do it.
Went to the Army early,
Yeah.
which is not uncommon.
Not uncommon, right. Jerry, quickly,
Yep.
tell this audience about the Greenwood food blockade.
Yeah, so in 1963, essentially the city of Greenwood, they're basically the civil rights movement, the SNCC, as they call them, SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, came into Greenwood. And they started protesting, and they were marching, but they were also registering people to vote. And this is the Delta in 1963, and Greenwood's kind of the buckle on the belt of the Delta, you know. And so, the police responded. They were arresting people. They were jailing people. Including Dick Gregory,
Yeah,
who
the
was
comedian.
a comedian who was also an activist.
Who's also my godfather.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
And anyway, and so the local city officials decided, well, if you're going to have these protests, if you're going to try to vote, we're just going to stop handing out these government surplus, the cheese and milk and things for kids that they were handing out. All right, we're just not going to feed anybody.
Try to starve them.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what they did. And Dick Gregory found out about it and literally flew a whole plane in
Of food.
of food. Yeah. Unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal. And if you've never seen Dick Gregory, watch videos of him from the 60s, like the early to mid 60s, because on YouTube or whatever, because he was hysterical. I mean, he was really, really funny, but,
He was hysterical his whole career.
Oh, he was. But I'm just thinking, some of the stuff he was addressing, he was daring to address Jim Crow and some of these things that were going on. And there were not many other comedians of those days that were really dealing like he did. So anyway, yeah. Because that was your livelihood. If you started getting into that area, suddenly the southern, states are going, oh, we're not going to have, allow his program to be aired on our TV stations, et cetera, those kind of things.
And there's a great Folkways recording of talking about the Greenwood food blockade, and Medgar Evers is speaking at a rally, and it was up in Greenwood, was trying to work with that movement as well, even though that was a separate organization, SNCC versus the NAACP, but really trying to paint a picture that they were working together all over the state to help.
Medgar worked with, even though his bosses didn't like it, Roy Wilkins didn't like it, but he was consistently working across those
Right.
lines,
Right.
with
Right.
SNCC, and he loved the young people. A lot of the young
Yeah.
people he mentored, like the Ladner sisters, which we may talk about
Right.
a little bit.
I want to
Yeah.
go ahead and move into, Reena, your memories of that night, the night that your father was killed. Can you walk us through, because you were 8, what do you remember about that night?
You mean what replays in my mind all the time?
I would imagine.
I remember the day and the night. So the day my father was in, and he sat down and had breakfast with us, and that wasn't always the case. And he stayed longer than we expected, And my mother said he just kept going out the door and coming back in the door. And telling us how much he loved us. She also said before that, the night before, there were several phone calls saying basically within 24 hours you're going to be gone. And so they were talking and holding each other and crying, both of them crying, knowing that it was coming close. So he said there's a mass meeting and he wanted his family there. And so we went to the mass meeting at New Jerusalem in Jackson, and our neighbors were our safety. My father's friends were his safety because the NAACP didn't want to pay for his safety. So they were his safety. There's still a little bitterness there. But we went and, we got to go through everything, and I was always glad to go into this. My brother's like, oh, do we have to stay through this? And, but we wanted to be with Dad, so that was always the draw.
Right.
And so I remember going into a room in the church, and Dad came back. It was just our family, and he hugged us and started telling us, make sure your homework's done. And I mean, homework had to be done before we left, but, all the fatherly type
Right.
of things. And then he said, I want you to stay up until I get home. And then that's when the steam started coming out of my mother's head. It's like, no, they can't stay up. Yes, they are staying up. No, they can't stay. So, that, and Dad won, of course. And we were happy. Daryl and I were happy. That's my elder brother, Daryl Kenyatta. Because my younger brother was 3, and so he just followed along. And so we went back to the house. We did know that someone was following us. And that when we got in the house safely and everything checked out safely, we heard the cars circling. Now, some of you might remember that there were not a lot of paved roads. And so you would hear the gravel, you would hear the rock, so you would know when cars are passing. So we got ready for bed and everything, and Dad said we could stay up, so we were watching TV.
Game on.
Exactly. And so we stayed up and watched President Kennedy do his speech, because that was important. At the time, we didn't know what all that was about. I mean, I knew it was important to Dad, but how it affected us all the way, no, I did not know at that time. But I knew that we could stay up, and so we did, and it got close to midnight. And we heard Dad's car come, because he taught us how to distinguish between noises. And so we said, Daddy's home. And as soon as Daryl and I were saying, Daddy's home, we heard the pow. And we knew exactly what that was too. We knew the noise of that. And my brother Daryl and I we were already on the floor watching TV, but we dropped into position. And my mother was laying on the bed with my brother Van, and she popped up. She didn't do what she was taught to do. She popped up and ran straight to the carport to where Dad was, and screaming. Daryl and I immediately did what Dad taught us. We pulled our little brother and got to the safest place in the house. But Mom was screaming so much, Daryl and I just busted right into the front and found Dad stretched out in a big pool of blood, holding the T-shirts, Jim Crow must go. And he was close to our porch. And when you think about what his body went through, because there was a big hole in his back, when you think about that, you think about the strength of a person who's determined to get to their family. He pulled himself from his car all the way around his car and my mom's car and halfway to the carport. And he was still alive because he was looking at us. And Daryl and I were like, Daddy, Daddy, get up, Daddy. And I got closer to Dad. We were all in shock, but Daryl was more in shock. And just kind of stood there. And Mom was just screaming. And then our neighbors came out and did warning shots. And I was just asking Daddy, Daddy, please get up. Daddy, Daddy, get up. Because he was my Superman.
Right.
Right? They then came, neighbors came with a station wagon and got my mattress out of my bedroom and put Dad on it to take him to the hospital. And then they almost turned him away. Well, they did initially turn him away. And then the doctor came out and said, "Do you know who this is? Let's get him in."
As we try to process this story, I want to pivot and talk for just a minute about the context of 1963, and then I'd like to play the song that Bob Dylan wrote about Medgar Evers. So as is described, 1963 in the fight for for freedom in Mississippi had been a severe struggle. And the movement was sort of in danger of falling apart. Morale was extremely low. And so Jim Foreman, the executive secretary of SNCC, came up with this idea for a folk festival in Greenwood, which was in the belly of the beast, the worst of the worst. And this would be an integrated gathering. And so he invited Pete Seeger, a folk artist from New York, to come down, Theo Bickel, who was an activist and actor in New York City, invited them to come down. This was going to be an integrated gathering, which was had also not been attempted. So this was going to be a new thing. We're going to try to have these white outside folk artists come down and perform as a way of sort of lifting up the crowd and say, hey, keep going, but also white folk performers came with media attention. And the movement was in desperate need of media attention. And so we'll have these performers down, they'll perform, and then people will write stories about that. And so the rally was set to be on July 6th on Laura McGee's farm right outside of Greenwood. And one of the performers, not certainly the only one, was a relatively unknown Bob Dylan, who at this point was 22 years old. He had just turned 22. I was living in Greenwich Village as a folk singer, but he was quickly developing a reputation for songwriting and especially topical songwriting. So his first album was with cover songs. He was a folk artist playing coffee houses, etc. His second album, which is the first one, Freewheelin' Bob Dylan, which is the first album that has any songs that he wrote on it, had just come out in May of 1963. So, a couple of months before this time period that we're talking about. Peter, Paul, and Mary's version of Blowin' in the Wind, famous Bob Dylan song, had only been on the air for a couple of weeks. In fact, it came out on June 18th, which was the day before Medgar Evers' funeral in Jackson. Cortland Cox, who's a SNCC worker that I interviewed, told me that when Blowin' in the Wind came out, it hit like a bomb in the movement, that this was what we've been trying to say. How many roads must a man walk down before you will call him a man, right? And radio stations across the country were playing this song on the hour, every hour. And that's the Peter, Paul, and Mary version, which sounds a lot better than Bob Dylan's nasally, version. But Blowin' in the Wind was in the air, but Bob Dylan was still kind of this guy in the background. But he had written songs about Emmett Till, and he had wrote a song about James Meredith and the integration of Ole Miss, but Only a Pawn in Their Game, which is his song about Medgar Evers' assassination, was a leap forward in his songwriting. It was far more literary, far more specific. Theo Bickel is actually who extended the invitation to get Dylan to come to Greenwood and perform. Bickel went to Dylan's manager and said, Pete and I are going to Mississippi. This is going to be a dangerous trip on the front lines, but Bob is writing these songs. People are starting to hail him as the voice of a movement, but he's never been to Mississippi. He's never been in the movement, right? And so if he's going to be an authentic voice for change, he's going to need to come to Mississippi. And Dylan's manager, and I find it interesting that this conversation is happening with his manager, not with Dylan himself. But Dylan's manager says, he's broke. We can't make that work. Next idea. But Bickel says, no, this is really important. If money is an issue, I'll pay for his ticket. And so Bickel does and flies Dylan down. And real quick, I'd like to read just a short passage. This is from Robert Shelton, is the New York Times reporter who discovered Dylan. And later in 1986, he would write the first definitive biography on Bob Dylan. And there's a quote in here from Theo Bickel. He says on why he invited him to this to perform at this rally. He said, I felt Bob should get a firsthand impression of the struggle in the South. We flew all night, changing planes in Atlanta, waiting there 2 hours, then changing again. Most of the way down, Bob was writing little notes and lines on envelopes. He didn't really talk too much. I didn't want to pry or shake him because I felt there was something quite tremulous and sensitive there. I suppose I felt slightly in awe of him. There was something churning inside him all the time, something quite deep. His political attitudes were not strongly formed like many of ours. It seemed more of a personal thing to him to be going down to the Deep South. He moved from the universal to the personal, while most artists and writers tend to move from the personal to the universal. And so in that in that context, Dylan comes down to Mississippi and performs at this SNCC rally. He's not the only one, obviously, that performs. They flew into Jackson. It's a 4-hour rally. Pete Seeger sings a few songs and then spends his time sort of excoriating Big Jim Eastland, a senator, segregationist senator from Mississippi, and tells the crowd, you know, if we can get the right to vote, we can vote out people like Eastland and vote in good senators. Is sort of Pete Seeger's thing. Bakel is a Jewish immigrant. And had fled Austria and fled the Nazis to come to America. And so he tells the crowd at Greenwood, you know, that I may be white, but I'm like you. I fled persecution and I'm fighting for freedom, and I'm in the movement, you know, for all of my days. The Freedom Singers were there, and they led, you know, communal singing, you know, and We Shall Overcome, and stand and perform that. And then there's Bob Dylan, who doesn't really fit into any of those kind of boxes, and he performs only 2 songs, and again, relatively unknown. He performs "Blowing in the Wind," you know, because that had been on the radio, and then he performs this song about your father, "Only a Pawn in Their Game." And so at this point, I'd like us to listen to the song. Is Lily Ross here? Is Lily in the room? So Lily Ross is one of our students, and she was a Dylan scholar back in the spring, but I asked her to put together this lyric video for us. And the first half of the video will just be the lyrics of Only a Pawn in Their Game. The second half, there's a 90-second shaky video footage of Dylan performing this song in this cotton field. And so when we get to the last 2 verses of the song, the video is going to flip over to the actual footage. So if we could dim the lights and let's listen to this together. And Jerry, I'll start with you. Just kind of react as somebody who, you know, has studied Medgar Evers and his life, and as a reporter. When you hear a song like that, what are your impressions?
I was talking to you earlier about this. I'm just marveled that a 22-year-old wrote this song.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a gift. Wow. Yeah, it's still emotional for me, and I don't know, especially more for you. But yeah, I did not hear this song until I was working on your dad's case. Like, I'd never heard this song, and then found out about it. I didn't even somehow found out about it. So kind of started my Bob Dylan period of, you know, listening to Dylan and that, and, you know, that and Highway 61 and some of the other albums during that time frame. I was just, you know, kind of became obsessed, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, it's so fascinating, and it's so prescient too, you know, in terms of people being used, you know, the poor being used as a pawn for politicians, you know. And so that I find that fascinating as well. It's, you know.
Reena, do you remember the first time you ever knew there was a song about your dad? This guy named Bob Dylan had written first time you ever heard that song?
I heard that there was a song that he had written, and I heard about it when I was hearing Blowing in the Wind. And that was really when I was, I want to say, like a freshman in high school. I didn't know all the lyrics yet until later on in life, when I had children, and my son was in junior high. And he was trying to start an African-American group, history group. And he said, "Mom, tell me about Granddad." I mean, we had talked about it, but, you know, you had to get deeper. You had to present and stuff. And that's when I found that. And went to Mom and said, did you know about this? And she goes, oh yeah, that's right. But we all kind of at that time, when I say all, it was myself, my son, and my mom. We started pouring through the lyrics, listening to the song, looking at how she reacted. I mean, he was looking at both of us to see our reactions.
Yeah.
And, you know, you say it's fascinating, right? I don't know if I want to use that verb.
No, that's not for you.
No, it's not for me. It is enlightening. It is hurtful. It feels shameful that we allow each of us to humiliate another one of us
Right.
for the gains, which is supposed to be for all of us, right? And I am, when you say it's fascinating that he's 22, I agree with you.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I totally agree. And when looking at this, and that's one reason I wanted to see, because I had
Yeah.
never really seen
Yeah.
it. He's so young, you know? I mean, and what really hits me is that he's never been in Mississippi. He wrote all this from hearing about it, and he hit it on the head. And he's never been here. He's never tasted the red clay dirt,
Right.
you know? And it's still prevalent now, whether it's Dad's name or not. And so it's a wake up again of what are we doing to each other and how we helping and uplifting each other. And to be so vulnerable, to be out there, because that's open.
Right.
Okay? And a lot of things could have happened.
Yeah.
And so he was willing to come down and share that, and then continue
Yeah.
to share songs like that.
He really put himself in harm's way to
Did.
come down. And,
Yeah.
and this song in particular, he performed at every opportunity he got to perform for the rest of 1963.
I heard that.
Performed it at the March on Washington, performed it for record executives, performed it in the fall. It obviously meant something to us, something he was trying to say.
In fact, I think it's one of those songs that Dylan featured, am I right, on his website, you know, or it's not, never a hit, anything like that.
Right.
So I tell you one thing, if anybody out there knows Bob Dylan, I'd like to meet him.
Me too.
Y'all can go together, right?
Real quick, because I want to leave time for at least a question or two before we dismiss.
You should mention, did you already mention about how close this was to the killer?
Yeah, that's where I wanted to go. Thank you, Jerry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For
I'm sorry.
teeing that up.
Sorry about that.
Well, I wanted to ask you about, the song is really more about
The killer.
the killer, you know, and so Jerry, tell us about this. You covered the trial, right? Of that event. So tell this audience about who murdered Medgar Evers, and
Sure.
was he a pawn in their game, or?
Yeah, wow. It's so fascinating. I mean, about Byron D. LeBeckwith, you know, this, he fought in World War II as well, and kind of interestingly, and but he became obsessed with race, the race issue, and just he joined. Basically, the seminal experience for him was he heard the Black Monday speech. Now, probably only some of you may know what I'm talking about, but there was a judge by the name of Tom Brady, and he delivered this famous speech after Brown versus Board of Education called Black Monday. And he delivered this kind of pseudo history kind of thing of how white people had built the pyramids in Egypt and all sorts of other nonsense. But that's, but that was kind of the thread. White people have done all the important things in humanity, and, Beckwith was never the same after that. Yeah. His sons told me, from that moment forward, he would set up card tables next to the governor's mansion and hand out copies of that speech. Just unreal. Yeah. And so I interestingly, there's some evidence that Beckwith volunteered, or I think the way he put it to someone was he drew the short straw. And so you definitely get the impression that this was a Klan operation, or otherwise, maybe the Citizens Council for that matter.
I'm sorry, I thought they were the same.
What's that? Yeah.
2 mistrials in the 60s.
2 mistrials in 1964,
in
and then the case got reopened in 1989. Mm-hmm. I wrote about it, and your mom asked for the case to get reopened, and it was. Yeah. So.
Fantastic. We have time for just a question or two before we dismiss. So that anybody in the audience that has anything for our panelists? We may have already answered all your questions. No, Dr. Bodie has a question. Hang on, they're bringing you a microphone. For those out there,
I'm struggling to use the word fascinated. Can you hear me? But I think I'll just borrow that term. The corollaries with this assassination and how Martin Luther King, that trial and the reopening and the mistrials and so forth. And I'm wondering what you see as corollaries with now political violence now, whether it's racial or otherwise motivated. Just talk just a little bit about where we are now compared to, where we were in 1963 with respect to political violence and handling our issues of difference with guns.
Either of you.
You can start.
I was kind of reminded of this because I went and interviewed the killer, Byron Dale Beckwith, and it's now 35 years ago this year that I talked to him. And what struck me not long ago was how many things he talked about that at the time were considered just radical, that have kind of begun to come back into conversation, I guess you'd say. Like, I'll give a simple example. His wife brought him something to drink, and it looked like orange soda, but when I looked at it more closely, it was like bubbling furiously, like some kind of mad scientist potion. And I'm kind of like, what's that? And he told me it was orange soda, only he combined it with food-grade hydrogen peroxide. And he was drinking this. And of course, the conversation continued, and he explained that it was to basically it was part of what's called chelation. Most people probably never even heard of chelation. It's a real thing. Like if people get lead poisoning, they'll use this they'll pump people intravenously, and it's called chelation. Okay, so there's like a real medical purpose for it. But people have kind of taken it and gone a little crazy with it. And so with regard to that, he said that the reason he was doing this is, the fluoridated water, and it was to, basically take all the poisons that the government's been putting in our bodies to get to, take those out. And you would think chelation and fluoridated water, like let's take chelation. You would think chelation would just be wacko, but that it's come back. Like people are advocating, including Robert Kennedy Jr. has advocated for chelation. The idea being it's somehow taking these poisons out of your body. And there was actually a 5-year-old boy that died because of this, because they did chelation on him. And then fluoridated water, Utah and I think Florida now have both banned fluoridated water. Well, the reason for fluoridated water, in case you don't know, is it reduces the number of cavities. Like they put fluoride in the water. Plus, it has other purposes, by the way. But it does. It helps reduce cavities by a substantial
Strengthens
percentage.
your teeth, your enamel, all of that.
It's good. It's good for you. But according to Beckwith, it was poisoning him. So this is why he had to drink food-grade hydrogen peroxide. So I'm just giving that as a simple example of, and other things too, obviously, we started talking about racial things. But anyway, I'll let you. You want to tackle that?
Tackle it?
I don't know. Whatever word you want to use.
Yeah.
We all want to tackle it. It's been over 60 years that my father was assassinated. And it seems almost like it's the same time
Yeah.
with certain things. Not with this room. I mean, to have us in this room now, that really wouldn't have happened back then.
No.
But so many things have been elevated. And the thing that has been elevated that we have to stop is hate for one another.
Amen.
To have a clear understanding that no matter what religion you are, you were created. We all were. We could talk about politics. A lot of the thoughts that are in politics now at the higher level were in politics in the 1950s. Murders have happened. That should never have happened. That just recently happened. Why do we think taking a person's life is going to change things? It elevates things in either this side or this side. That question is very emotional. I'm a little biased. And I go back to what my father told me. To remember there's good and bad in every race. And always look for the good. What we are talking about today, about being a pawn in the game, we need to make sure that we're not the pawn in the game.
Yeah.
We need to be vigilant on really what's going on in the world. Listen, not just let it go by on TikTok. Be here. Look at the laws. Understand the laws before you go out and say something about the law. Be clear that your message that you're saying to one another, putting on social media. And it might take a little longer, but research it. You know, there's a saying that has been prevalent for the last 20 years or so. Sure, more than that. But it is truth saying. Telling the truth. We need to learn how to do that again. We need to be able to embrace it. And the consequences, it's going to happen anyway, either way. It's going to come out in the light. I think right now, for me, the pawn in the game, the state that we are right now in the United States of America and the world, but the United States of America is at such a nasty point of a sinkhole that we have to learn how to get out. And you know what? There's a nasty point of a sinkhole, but there's somebody right there holding that stick going, come on, let's go. We're going to build this together. Come on, let's go. And we all need to pull on that stick. There needs to be a long line. There needs to be miles and miles around the world of saying, we got you, we got you, we got you. Let's build this. Let's do this. I'm smiling because I hear him in my ear. It's going, okay, it's time to wrap it up. So I'm going to stop right there, besides saying that this has been a blessing and it has been a curse, because it's so painful still. But it's a blessing to have lived through it and moving forward. And meeting y'all, all of y'all. That's my story and I'm sticking to it.
There you go.
Real quickly, I just want to let you know that we do have a reception outside. Jerry will be signing books. There's some flyers in the back if you're interested in Bob Dylan's Support Fund for the work that we're doing here at the University of Mississippi. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We'll continue the conversation outside.